So picture this. You are walking past the local civil affairs bureau.
Right, the marriage registration office.
Exactly, the official office where couples go to tie the knot, and the window is open, the lights are on.
Yeah.
But the long line of eager couples you might expect to see, it's just gone. It is surprisingly quiet.
It really is.
And we have the data to back up that quietness. In the first quarter of 2026, only 1.697 million couples registered for marriage in China.
Right.
That is a 6.2% drop from the exact same period last year.
Yeah, and if you zoom out even further, that number is roughly half of what it was back in 2017. Half.
Half. That is a massive drop. And behind the sudden quiet, a huge question bubbles up for you, the listener. Like, why aren't young people in a hurry to get married anymore?
It's a huge question because that quiet registration window is arguably one of the most important economic indicators in the world right now.
Right.
We are not just looking at a cultural shift or, people falling out of love. We are looking at a massive fundamental rewrite of modern life.
Okay, so we know the numbers are falling fast, and the media is absolutely obsessed with it.
Yeah.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
If people want to stay single, or focus on their careers, or just enjoy their independence, why is this a crisis? I mean, if human beings are happy being single, why is the global financial press watching this one specific metric so closely?
Well, what's fascinating here is that in this specific context, a marriage certificate is effectively a leading indicator for a birth certificate.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, in many parts of the world, getting married and having a child are two entirely separate life events. You can easily have one without the other.
Right.
But in China, having a child is still incredibly closely tied to being legally married, both culturally and administratively.
Let's slow down and look at the administrative side of that.
Mm-hmm.
What actually stops a single person from just, starting a family?
It really comes down to how the system is built from the ground up.
Okay.
To easily access public maternity benefits, or to get a child smoothly registered in the local household system.
Which is super important, right?
Oh, absolutely. That system dictates where the child can go to school and how they access public health care. And to do that smoothly, you traditionally need a marriage certificate.
Wow.
Without it, navigating the bureaucracy becomes an uphill battle. The entire system is designed around the traditional family unit. Therefore, fewer marriages today is a flashing red warning light for fewer babies tomorrow.
Okay, let's unpack this. Basically, this means looking at marriage data is like looking at the weather forecast, right?
Yeah.
If dropping marriages are the dark clouds gathering, a shrinking population is the rain that's guaranteed to follow.
Exactly.
You don't need to actually feel the rain to know you should probably bring an umbrella.
That's a great way to put it. And honestly, that rain has already started.
Right.
In 2025, the population fell for the fourth consecutive year, and birth rates hit a record low. So when economists look at those dark clouds, they see a future with fewer workers, aging consumers, and a massive strain on pension systems.
And here's what I don't get. If human beings are, biologically wired to partner up, and society places so much value on it, what forces are strong enough to override that basic drive?
Well, you have to look at the actual everyday pressure of saying, I do.
Okay.
Our sources point heavily to something called the marriage package.
The marriage package. What is that exactly?
The marriage package is this realization that getting married is no longer just about two people committing to each other. It has morphed into an enormous mandatory bundle of economic expectations.
Like what?
Well, to even be considered a viable candidate for marriage, young people are expected to secure an apartment in an incredibly expensive real estate market.
Right.
They need to hold down stable employment, and often they are expected to provide a substantial traditional bride price.
But wait, hasn't starting a family always been hard? I mean, our grandparents raised kids during much tougher economic times, often with very little money and tiny homes.
That's true.
So why is this generation treating marriage like an impossible economic exam instead of just a normal part of life?
Because the baseline requirements have entirely changed.
How so?
Your grandparents weren't expected to buy a $1 million apartment in a major tech hub just to get a date.
Fair point.
And they weren't facing a hyper-competitive education system where raising a single child requires decades of expensive after-school tutoring just to ensure they can get a decent job.
Yeah, the pressure is totally different now.
Exactly. Today, the starting line for marriage involves taking on massive, multi-decade debt.
Let's talk about that bride price concept for a second, because I think a lot of listeners might hear that and picture like a symbolic gift. But in 2026, We are talking about a major financial transfer, aren't we?
Oh, we are talking about life-altering sums of money.
Really?
Yeah, depending on the region, it can mean handing over years of saved salary, plus a down payment on a house, plus a car.
Oh, yeah.
And once you actually get married, that package immediately expands to include steep childcare costs and incredibly long working hours.
Just to pay for everything.
Right, just to service the debt you took on to get married in the first place.
Simply put, it sounds like walking into a store to buy a smartphone. You really want the phone. Let's say the phone represents a loving partnership.
Okay, I follow.
But the store manager says you can only have the phone if you sign up for the most expensive lifetime data plan, buy a gold-plated case, and purchase a bundle of premium apps you didn't even ask for.
That is a perfect analogy.
It's not that young people don't want the phone, right? It's that they are terrified of the mandatory bundle. Are they just priced out?
They are completely priced out of the store. Marriage has become an economic exam. Young people aren't asking, do I want to love someone? They are asking, do I have the financial qualifications to start a family?
And if they don't?
The barrier to entry is so incredibly high that they simply delay the test or they avoid taking it altogether.
So we have the financial receipt. The price tag is astronomical. But looking at our sources, there's a second layer to this that is changing the entire math of marriage. And it specifically involves the changing reality for women.
Yes. This is where the structural friction really begins to show.
Okay, tell me more about that.
To understand the dropping numbers, you have to look at how the marriage bargain has fundamentally shifted. Today, modern Chinese women have higher education, they have strong career ambitions, and they have achieved financial independence.
Right. They earn their own salaries, they buy their own apartments.
Exactly. But the traditional expectation of marriage, where the woman does the lion's share of unpaid household labor, childcare, and elder care, while also working that, hasn't changed fast enough to match reality.
To play devil's advocate, though, if men are the ones facing the intense societal pressure to buy the house and provide the bride price, aren't the men the ones who are financially burned out and opting out?
Well, men are absolutely feeling the financial crush, which leads many to step back. But women are facing a severe structural penalty that goes beyond just money.
The dreaded second shift.
Exactly that. While women have modernized and entered the workforce at full speed, the traditional expectations inside the home have not evolved at the same pace. The old model assumes the wife will take on the vast majority of the unpaid household labor.
Right, so a woman is expected to work a highly demanding job all day and then come home to do the cooking, the cleaning, the child care.
And eventually manage the health care for aging parents on both sides of the family.
So what does this all mean for a young professional woman? If someone proposes, she has to look at the deal on the table and think, wait, I have to keep my day job, do most of the chores, and risk a penalty to my career.
Yeah.
Why would anyone rush to sign that contract? If a business offered you a deal where you take on twice the daily workload and sacrifice your free time, you would walk out of the room.
And many women are refusing to sign it. It's not that women are anti-marriage. It's that they're demanding a fairer, more equal partnership before they enter it.
Right.
When a woman takes on all those traditional family duties, she inevitably faces a career penalty. The math simply does not work in her favor anymore. The old model simply isn't a good deal.
So the costs are too high for men, and the structural deal is too unfair for women. It's a total deadlock.
It really is.
Surely the authorities see this happening, though. They see the empty registration offices and the shrinking workforce. Let's look at the solutions being proposed and why they seem to be barely making a dent in the problem.
Right. Well, the state is highly aware of the demographic cliff, and they are rolling out a variety of policies.
Like what kind of policies?
They are trying to simplify marriage registration rules, heavily relaxing household registration barriers, offering local cash subsidies for families, and pledging more childcare support.
Let's clarify that household registration barrier, because that sounds like a lot of bureaucratic jargon. What does relaxing that actually do for a young couple?
Well, in the past, under the hukou system, your official household registration was tied to your hometown.
Okay.
If you moved to a major city for work, you couldn't just walk into the local office and get married. You often had to travel all the way back to your home province, navigating a lot of red tape.
That sounds exhausting.
It was. So the government is removing those hurdles, allowing people to register where they actually live and work.
Okay, that makes the paperwork easier, sure. But here's where it gets really interesting. Looking at this from a street-level view, these policies sound like giving someone a 10% discount coupon for a luxury car they already can't afford.
Spot on.
I mean, a small cash subsidy lowers the first step, sure, but it doesn't rebuild the whole staircase, does it?
That captures the limitation perfectly. The state can easily simplify the paperwork at the registration office. They can make the door easier to open. But they cannot easily simplify the heavy, expensive, exhausted life after the marriage begins.
Right, because a cash subsidy of a few $100s a month doesn't fix a toxic work culture where you're at the office from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week.
No, it doesn't.
You can't use a government voucher to buy more hours in the day to actually see your kids.
The core issue is structural exhaustion. A small discount doesn't lower the million-dollar mortgage required to live in a good school district. It doesn't erase the fierce competition of the education system. Policy tweaks are trying to speed up a life decision, but the modern economy has made that decision too heavy to lift.
Now, we've focused intensely on China's data so far, but looking closely at our sources, this quiet civil affairs office isn't just a local story, is it?
Not at all. It is actually a window into a massive regional shift.
The regional shift.
Yeah, if you zoom out, you see this exact same pattern repeating across East Asia. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore are all experiencing this identical demographic crunch.
So the underlying forces are the same everywhere.
Almost identical. Across all these highly developed regions, you have intense urban pressure. You have eye-watering housing costs.
Right.
You have punishing corporate work cultures that demand incredibly long hours. And you have generations of highly educated women who are confronting deeply entrenched traditional expectations about who does the laundry and who raises the children.
So basically what we're saying is that after modernization, getting married and having kids is no longer the default setting for a human life.
Exactly.
50 years ago, it was the default operating system. You didn't question it, you just followed the program. Now, it has become an opt-in premium feature that you only choose if you can afford it and if the terms are fair.
Yes, an opt-in premium feature. That completely shifts how we view society. You only choose to add this feature to your life if you can handle the massive upfront cost, and if you read the terms and conditions and decide the daily workload is fair.
And if you don't?
If you don't have the funds or you don't like the terms, you just stick with the basic single life.
But if this is a shared East Asian dilemma, why does the global financial press single out the Chinese data quarter after quarter?
Scale. The only difference is that China's massive scale means this opt-in shift will have gigantic consequences.
For who?
For the global economy, labor, and aging populations over the next few decades. If an entire generation and a population that large decides the premium feature of family is simply out of reach, it alters the global labor supply.
Wow.
The echo of that quiet registration office is going to rattle supply chains and pension funds all over the world for the next 50 years.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground in this deep dive. Let's bring all these threads together for you.
Sounds good.
We started by looking at a surprisingly empty registration window, driven by a staggering drop in marriage rates. And we discovered that window isn't empty because young people suddenly hate romance or are selfish.
Far from it. They are making highly rational decisions based on the environment they live in.
It's empty because the marriage package has become an overwhelming economic burden. The traditional contract is no longer a viable deal, especially for modern women who refuse to work a double shift without a fair partnership.
Right.
And we saw that while government policies try to offer a small discount, they can't magically erase the million-dollar price tag or the exhausting reality of modern urban life.
And zooming out, marriage is transitioning from society's default setting to an expensive opt-in choice across the entire region.
Which leaves us staring at a totally transformed landscape. The architecture of society is fundamentally changing.
And that transformation raises an important question, and it is something I want to leave you, the listener, to mull over today.
Go for it.
For centuries, marriage and family have been the automatic default foundations of adult life. They were the ultimate social safety net. If people are increasingly opting out of that traditional structure because the burden is simply too heavy, what comes next?
What replaces the family?
Exactly. What new kinds of communities, friendships, or neighborhood safety nets will we need to invent to support ourselves as we age?
That is a fascinating thought. If we are no longer relying on a spouse and children to care for us in our later years, how do we rebuild society to ensure people aren't left completely isolated?
We are going to have to design a completely new blueprint for how we live together.
We really are. Well, thank you for joining us as we unpack the silence outside that registration window. We will catch you on the next deep dive.